Chloe, sit in the chair.
Children's behavior can be baffling.
Say it again. Sit in the chair.
Emotional tsunamis over a small disappointment or a simple request.
Go pick it up, please.
Rage that erupts out of nowhere.
I'm gonna cut you with a sharp knife.
How does a little kid even have this much in him and this much anger?
And it's not just anger. What triggers a teenager to regress to thumb sucking?
We'll just talk about it. We'll just have a conversation about it. You don't provide anything.
Or a sudden emotional shutdown? Consistent behavioral problems are telltale signs of fragile children. They may be carrying invisible wounds from early harm that robbed them of a sense of security and trust. Their brains are generally stuck in a state of anxiety. Added stress can provoke a hair trigger response.
They act this way simply because they don't know how to act any other way. A child who is afraid is very often angry. A child who's sad may lash out. For adults, lots of times it doesn't make sense. We think, well, if they're sad, why don't they act sad? But that's not the way it is with children lots of times.
In my many years of life, I've never seen the kind of loss and hardship that these kids have had. Most of our children have had ruptured dreams, ruptured relationships, ruptured hope, and for most of them, ruptured trust.
Is there any chance I could trade you a hug?
Parents and professionals from around the world have found solutions here at the Institute of Child Development at Texas Christian University.
And I'm wondering if we can outline the paper.
Developmental psychologists Dr. Karen Purvis and Dr. David Cross offer a unique intervention for high-risk, vulnerable children. It's called Trust-Based Relational Intervention, or TBRI. Drs. Purvis and Cross have built the program on decades of research and personal experiences. Whether you're a parent, teacher, or a professional working with children in a classroom or group facility, TBRI gives caregivers the tools to meet the unique needs of children from hard places.
What's going on with you? Can you tell me?
From toddlers to teens, the program works for children of all ages, nurturing their bodies, brains, and beliefs. Adoptive and foster parents say it's worked for them.
And this time we're going to do it with respect, okay?
And caregivers in residential treatment centers, orphanages, and child welfare settings endorse it too.
Would you let your buddy know?
While this video introduces the concepts of TBRI, more in-depth training is offered through other videos in the Healing Families video series and conferences at the Institute.
Let's sit up. Let's sit up. Let's sit up.
The first step?
We don't have a timer yet, do we?
Look at children with behavioral problems with fresh eyes and empathy. What appear to be inexplicable behaviors are often survival and coping strategies they learned before they entered your life. Children from hard places have a history of harm. It's crucial for caregivers to grasp how that harm damages a child's development. We all get the impact of physical or sexual abuse. But do you know that neglect can be just as damaging or worse? Prenatally, a growing brain can be hurt by a mother who uses drugs or alcohol or eats a poor diet. A stressful pregnancy or a difficult birth can also impact brain development. So can the trauma of living through a natural disaster or an event like 9/11. Even well-meaning medical interventions and life-saving surgeries are encoded into a child's brain as trauma. And if the adults who care for the children with histories of harm have insecure attachment styles or unresolved baggage of their own, that can further derail a child. Experts often use the diagnosis of complex developmental trauma for those children from hard places who consistently fall short of typical markers for childhood development.
There are so many children in our society and globally in the society of the world that have come from hard places. They've been harmed or abused, they've suffered trauma or endured hardships. And for those children, learning to trust or their capacity to trust has been fiercely damaged. The stress system stays on fight, flight, or freeze. The gas pedal is stuck at 120 miles an hour for that child emotionally and behaviorally.
Can you tell me how you feel? You do not.
The smallest thing may cause them aggression and a meltdown. They may fight.
I want to do it right now.
But we can't because the pool's not open. The smallest change in plans may cause them to fall apart and run away emotionally or physically.
When they're most frightened, they are most likely to do things that just seem bizarre. And it looks like they're just insane, but they're not insane. They're scared, they're afraid, and it's a deep, fundamental kind of fear.
And this deep fear triggers a deep need for control.
I don't want to.
I know. For the child like this one, whose world was chaotic and out of control, the need to stay in control is more desperate than his need for breath and life, because he believes the moment he's out of control, his world will end.
I need both of your eyes, please, right here.
Children's manipulation and controlling strategies are, from the child's standpoint, survival strategies. That's how they made it in the world so far. And they don't know anything else. And they're not doing it because they want to make your life miserable, even though it does. They're doing it because they don't know anything else better to do.
But I don't want to do that. My brain is going.
Your brain's going crazy. Okay. You know what? My brain goes crazy.
Complex developmental trauma says if a child has trauma, all bets are off on brain development. And that means that all systems are different. How this child feels, how they think, how they learn, how they process the senses, how they interact with peers. Every region of the brain that deals with the substance of life has been altered for these children. It is a harm that has global implications to the child's development.
That's because trauma, in whatever form, alters the way the brain is wired, especially during the first 3 years of life. While genetics are responsible for the billions of neurons that drive our central nervous system, it's our experiences that define how those brain cells connect and create pathways that govern everything we do. Like a house under construction, the more primitive downstairs brain develops first. Fully formed by the time we're born, it tells our hearts to beat and lungs to breathe and keeps us alive.
And its job is to constantly sort of scan the environment, to be paranoid a little bit, to be watching, is everything okay here? Am I okay? Am I safe? Is anyone out to get me? Can I relax? And that part of the brain is always appraising what's going on around us. For some kids, actually...
Psychotherapist Dr. Tina Payne Bryson is co-author of the best-selling book, The Whole Brain Child.
So for a child who's had repeated exposure to fearful experiences, whether those be sort of a trauma like a car accident, or whether it's developmental or relational trauma, where the caregiver was frightening, or they were left for long periods of time to manage their own fear states. The downstairs brain has gotten a lot of practice being active. It's the repeated experiences that we have that actually activate growth and connection in the brain. So if a child has had a lot of experiences where their downstairs brain that was reactive and fearful, that part of the brain gets really well developed.
In normal childhood development, this is where the upstairs brain would kick into gear. Far more complex, it controls our ability to think, regulate our emotions, and respond with good choices. It's here where brain development in children from hard places goes haywire. Deprived of the critical bonding and nurturing that comes from a caring adult consistently meeting their needs, they never fully develop skills for self-control and security.
For several decades, we have understood what is called the attachment cycle. And what it says is that a baby cries and a caregiver comes. The baby cries and I say, yes, I will feed you. Cries, yes, I will warm you. Yes, I will comfort you. Yes, I will cradle you. Yes, I will sing to you. And so this child learns not only that they're precious, that they have a voice, that they cry, somebody shows up, but this child learns that it matters if they have needs. It happens, if you think about it, hundreds of thousands of times in the earliest years of life. And the child learns that their needs are going to be met, so they learn trust, which is the lesson of the first year of life. I can trust. It's the bond that tells that child they're safe, that their needs matter, that they are precious.
It's also the crucial bond that teaches a child how to regulate or soothe his or her own emotions.
By you tuning into your child's distress, you can figure out what it is that's distressing her, a diaper that's wet, hunger, she's cold, and do something in life to actually calm her down. Her brain actually learns from experience, wow, I was distressed, that really felt bad. My mom or dad came over to me, she or he did this, they did that, then I felt better. If I call out for help, the world will provide, and I will actually feel calmer.
Neuropsychiatrist Dr. Dan Siegel is a world-renowned expert in the field of parenting and child behavior and co-author of The Whole Brain Child.
Soon, after 18 months, 24 months, I'm going to actually start using those repeated experiences where I rely on others to soothe my distress, to actually soothe myself.
Robbed of those early, consistent, and secure attachment experiences with a primary caregiver, children from hard places never learn self-regulation. Their brains become hyper-vigilant.
Do you like bubble gum?
Yeah. No, okay.
Reorganizing around survival at the expense of building healthy connections in the upstairs brain.
What is very, very sobering, we know that the brain chemistry of a child who cries and no one comes is dramatically altered.
We can either be cut off from our emotions or we can become flooded by them. And when either of these things happen, it can create all kinds of chaos and rigidity in children's behavior and in the way that they interact with people.
Let me see eyes, sweetheart. Please sit up here and talk to me.
Because of her history of maltreatment, this 8-year-old suffers from an anxiety disorder called selective mutism, where she shuts down under stress.
Okay, I need some words from you. I need some words. I know you can give me words.
When attachment is derailed, essential skills like language development and how we process sensory information can also fall by the wayside, triggering what can appear to be perplexing behavior. This mother was crushed when her adopted daughter, as an infant, recoiled from her loving embrace.
I would hold her close and give her what I thought she so desperately needed to heal, and I would see her place her little hands on me and push me back.
Eventually, she learned her touch was actually painful to her child.
It was so painful, so confusing to not know what to do for your own child.
Now, this mother asked for permission before embracing her daughter.
Could Mom have a goodbye hug since I won't see you all day?
No, maybe.
Could we have a compromise and blow me a kiss? Once I knew that my child had problems with sensory processing, I could blame the sensory processing rather than blaming myself or blaming my child.
When you are deprived of those early experiences, you might as well be deprived of food, because your nervous system is not going to develop normally. It's as if you didn't have zinc or iron or vitamin D or something else, or that was necessary for that system to develop.
No! The bad behavior that we see, the dysregulation, falling apart, crying, screaming, yelling, saying disrespectful things, all of these things are actually because they are in dysregulated states. So it's much more like a can't. They can't choose to do the right thing. They can't control themselves in those moments.
Tell Mommy what you did wrong.
This adoptive mother wishes she had known about sensory issues from day one.
I don't know.
I just never realized, and I really never have let myself go to where she was before us. I think I always wanted to believe that we rescued her and that that was enough. I feel sad that she went through something and I don't know what. And then I feel guilty for, I think, really not ever thinking about it. But I didn't know. I just didn't know.
So if you're a foster parent or an adoptive parent and the child that you're taking care of and you're loving has actually not had the kind of experiences of joy being amplified and distress being soothed that is the basis of secure attachment, then in fact, that child's regulatory circuits are not going to function as well. The system of the child has no organized approach. It fragments. And that's what the internal world of these kids is like.
This is tragic because these children don't trust, don't know how to get their needs met appropriately. There is a tremendous amount of confusion about relationships. They desperately want relationships, but they're confused about how to develop them. And they make an approach and then reject, make an approach and then reject. This is a very baffling situation for a caregiver. These children tragically grow up to be children who are at high risk to use drugs, alcohol, sex, other types of addictions to make them feel better because relationships couldn't do it. The child who has come from a hard place with a history of trauma or loss or abuse has no hope of healing without a nurturing, caring, attachment relationship.
That's a sobering reality. But it's also reason for hope. Just as neuroscientists have documented how trauma harms the brain, research shows that nurturing experiences through trusting relationships can help heal the brain.
The way we communicate with a child actually can stimulate the growth of certain areas of that child's brain that help them regulate things like emotion and attention, and even how they come to understand themselves and understand others. The communication patterns you offer, the way you connect with your child, the way you have a relationship with your child, actually stimulates the firing of particular patterns in the brain that then get the brain to grow in specific ways so that it becomes a biological reality how your relationship changes the structure of your child's brain.
That's powerful stuff for caregivers to know. By simply comforting your children in distress and reinforcing their happy moments, you can cultivate positive brain connections and development.
Can you remember to use your big voice if you need me, right?
Repeated positive experiences help hardwire the brain for new growth at any age.
Except for the first 3 years of life, the period of the most rapid growth and change is during adolescence. And so if the wiring patterns have been set up in suboptimal ways, adolescence is actually a wonderful, exciting time where the brain goes through major reconstruction. Parents often think it's kind of too late, maybe too much has happened, but intervention can be so helpful during the adolescent years.
So the message of hope for our families is that attachment is plastic. There is great hope that we can help our children heal.
There's a huge amount of science behind the importance of a relationship a parent or any other caregiver has with a child. And here's the thing to remember. The child's growing brain is going to be living in the garden of a relationship that is watering it and feeding it, so that the way that garden grows is all about relationships. That's what the brain thrives on. You know, relationships are brain food.
And you link up just like this, it's gonna become a big change.
Building and growing trusting relationships is what TBRI is all about.
So what can we do? What can we do? Can we communicate?
TBRI uses play to build connections and change behavior.
It works better if we all run the same way, right? Left, left, left.
It empowers children by meeting their physical and nutritional needs.
When we are sticking together and working as a unit, we cannot be stopped. Stick together and we're strong.
And most importantly, its connecting principles are all about meeting emotional needs.
Are we going to stick together?
And creating an environment where a child can learn to feel safe, loved, and attached.
TBRI, trust-based relational intervention, has at its core building a tuned, trusting relationship with our child. It has 3 sets of principles, and they deal with and look at the child as a whole.
Can you open this for me, please?
We empower the bodies of the children. The kids won't know what a sweetheart you have. We connect to the little spirits of the children. And then we have a great set of principles that are called correcting principles.
Can you ask, not tell, Mama? Say, could I please have my fireball back?
And in these principles, we help parents learn how to redirect their child's behavior while still being deeply connected, while still being deeply empowering.
Our kids have experienced what I would call relationship-based traumas. They've been abandoned, they've been neglected, they've been abused, they've been institutionalized. Problems that are formed in the context of relationships can only be healed in the context of relationships.
I love you. I know it.
The relationship is the focus. The relationship is the context. Without the relationship, we can make no progress whatsoever. So that has to be the focus, the central focus of what we do. And relationships are based on trust.
And trust is earned through something we call felt safety.
It is impossible for a child to grow and become healthy unless they feel safe. We'll see you, little buddy. So felt safety is the cornerstone of everything we need to do with these kids.
Felt safety means the child feels safe. It's different from you knowing they're safe.
Can I give you a hug?
It's not a cognitive thing, it's the way we feel. It's an emotional thing. So safety at this primitive level is not something you know so much as you feel. It's in your very being.
Okay, look, use your words then and tell me what you want to do. Let me see eyes.
In our children, this need to feel safe has really never been met. And it's a driving force in everything that they do.
Will you come get me? I'm the boss of camp, okay? Oh, do we get worn out?
The really tricky part for most of our parents are they'll say, well, he's 10 years old, he shouldn't still have this problem. Well, remember that the brain development that he needed to be a healthy 10-year-old was the first 3 years of life. If there was any failure in the first 3 years of life, you start with him with this need. Now,
Tell me about your night. How did your night go?
Long.
Research shows children from hard places can be developmentally less than half their chronological age. A child who's 8 may act more like a 3 or 4-year-old. A 15-year-old may act more like an 8-year-old.
Dude, that's great, Jay. Right.
Once children feel confident and trusting, they can replace old survival strategies with appropriate behavior.
We're going to work on good words, bad words. You can say, I feel angry about that, I feel sad about that, I wished I didn't have to do that. Those are all honest, right?
Like whenever you ask or command people to do something for you, do this for me, and in a good word, can you do this for me?
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
TBRI has helped children of all ages, even teenagers, learn new skills, such as coping with profound loss.
So today we're going to talk about ways to let things go when we need them to let go.
In this exercise, they're asked to write words expressing their loss and then attach those feelings to balloons and release them.
Mine is about encouragement because I didn't have anything. So.
What about you, Ann?
I'm releasing a letter to my mom that should have been written. Yo. When she passed away, I told myself I'd always write her a letter. Finally had the chance to do it.
I believe that for those who work with adolescents, there's a huge challenge to look at their size and their age and realize there still is a tremendous amount of little bitty child that needs nurture. Interestingly, these children want to play like little kids. Adolescents are in many ways little bitty children wanting desperately to be loved and cared for and nurtured.
You got it, Jim.
We create for them this uniquely healing environment, but make no mistake about it. We are no nonsense on behavior.
Correcting principles, I like to think of them as shaping principles. We're trying to shape children's behavior.
Missy Ice. So when your buddy asks you, please stop, what can you do now? Stop. Good thinking. All right, let's go swim.
I want you to write one thing that you've learned at camp.
Instead of punishment, the TBRI correcting principles use play and short scripts to help redirect the child's behavior and stop violent outbursts before they begin.
They're just simply short phrases that have great meaning.
Good eyes. Good asking. Thank you.
It's a vocabulary that honors relationships.
Oh, gentle and kind, Abby. Let's try it again.
That's very direct, very simple, and very straightforward.
Thank you. That was nice.
It's not okay.
I'm watching the movie.
Let's try it again with respect. We are zero tolerance disrespect, period. If a child talks to me mouthy, I will say, try it again, buddy.
Traditional discipline simply doesn't work with our kids.
You give that back to her right now.
Neither does shaming or belittling a child, as these actors demonstrate.
I am sick and tired of you acting like a little brat. Can't you just do anything right? Now you get up and go to your room.
Punishment is the least effective way to change behavior that there is. And in fact, it's very often counterproductive. It actually makes things worse because it reactivates all those old demons, all those old traumas.
And you stay in your room until I tell you can come out.
Correcting only really works effectively when we're connected or when we honor the connection.
Instead of sending the child away, TBRI teaches you to correct behavior while keeping the child close and connected.
Honey, people are not for hurting.
Go pick it up, please. Go pick it up.
I don't have to because it's mine.
We clearly have to deal with behavior, but an absolute, undeniable principle for us while we're correcting is the fact that our child's preciousness is never up for grabs. Our child's behavior is not who he is. Our child's behavior is about survival skills from a history we could not be there to protect him from. Their behavior is not who they are. You know what, Dustin? We're going to have a lot of fun doing program, but we also want to work on not using aggression, because if you keep using aggression, it's going to make trouble for you, right? Because the kids won't know what a sweetheart you have.
And when we show non-verbally no threat, what happens is that fight reactive downstairs part of the brain can calm down. And then we can engage the upstairs brain.
You just had a little problem. I had a little problem earlier. Did you know I had a little problem? I got to camp this morning, and did you know I was having a kind of a tantrum?
And what's remarkable is when we do that, when we acknowledge the feeling and connect with the child on the feeling, I've felt afraid about things too. Something along those lines. It actually grows the connective fibers between the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain so that that child can be better behaved and better handle their emotions in the long run.
Can I do less by myself?
Just as TBRI asks children to give up their old control strategies,
Is that good?
you may need to give up some of your old ways of dealing with conflict. And if you're trying to help a child who has been damaged by harm or trauma, it's crucial for you to have dealt with any painful history of your own. Unresolved emotional issues can block you from leading the child to a healthier place.
It's, of course, important how you create discipline and structure and give your child an environment and a set of experiences. Of course, of course, of course. But the thing that really shapes those behaviors is how you've made sense of your life, and in a sense, the way you are, not so much what you do.
If we can become aware of our own history, we can become the master of that history, and we will be more effective in parenting our children, particularly children who come from hard places.
This insight was a huge aha moment for these parents.
We're going to leave about 5:30, 5:30.
Triggered them to radically change how they parented their kids.
I'm sorry. Put your head down.
As you look at attachment, you begin to find out that the way I interact with my children in the moment by moment, day by day, can actually begin to change their brain development. That was kind of the cure, if you will, to the harm and the trauma that really every adopted and foster child is experiencing. There is no adoption and foster care without loss. There is no adoption and foster care without something having gone wrong in the past.
What big dog would you have, Miles?
I want to have a husky.
Michael and his wife Amy are the parents of 4 adopted children. As he began to explore his past, Michael was surprised to learn how his behavior and his attachment style contributed to the problems with one of his sons.
One of my boys, because I've got one who's prone to some real volatile eruptions of emotion, his feelings oftentimes were driving my feelings. So here's a child who has a difficult time regulating his emotions, especially when things don't go his way. And so he would blow up. And because I wasn't aware of what was going on with me, I would blow up. So rather than being one to help him calm down and bring everything under control, I'm actually adding fuel to the fire.
So, good day at school? What happened?
Michael came to realize that he had never felt fully comfortable on an emotional level. So the way he reacted to his son's stress and emotional outburst was just the opposite of what his child needed.
And you looked at me and you were crying, really upset with me, and you said, Dad, you're supposed to be the big person here. Oh.
And so when he's upset, he needs to see in me, hey, I understand you're upset. This is really not good, and we can work this out. But he doesn't need me to be upset with him.
Oh, man.
And if you can't tolerate that feeling, let's say, of sadness or loneliness or despair or betrayal or anger in yourself, then what happens is your child brings this distress state to you. You start feeling it, but you haven't learned to tolerate it. You freak out, so then you back off from that. They see you're backing up. They see you can't tolerate it. It expands it in them. You pull back even more, and suddenly that relationship is not working so well for anybody. Everyone is suffering.
Tell her how close you came.
And it was like the light bulb went off. It's not just about my child does this, what do I do? But it's about I bring this, what am I doing? So that I can help my child deal with those behaviors or deal with those challenges or deal with those issues.
Dan Siegel and other attachment experts say this process of making sense of your past and becoming aware of your attachment style is the single most important thing you can do to improve your relationship with your child.
What research shows is that if you make sense of your life, your child will do well. But the research also shows that if you've had really difficult times in the past and haven't taken the time to make sense of what's happened to you that's shaped your development, that's going to actually compromise your child's development.
And it really is a dance. It takes 2 partners, and it takes partners who read each other's cues. It's not the job of the child to read your cues. It's the parent's job to read the child's cues and not step on their toes. Now, a lot of our families will feel like mom's doing the waltz and the child's doing the Okie-Finokie 2-step, but they will learn our step as we are attentive to what they are doing.
It may be something as simple as taking the time to listen. It may be being more playful or taking the time to play. Whatever it is that works, try to find that one thing that can be the first step and that will unlock the box that will lead to greater connection and greater joy in your parenting.
I'll see you in the morning. You need.
And there is hope. My kids are changing me every time we interact, and I am changing them every time we interact. And we're overcoming together what we brought to the equation. Neither they nor we do it perfectly.
Good night. Love you, buddy.
But as we continue to dance that dance, we begin to change each other, and that's the hope of this.
As we create a new attachment dance, we create a new story, and it's a shared story that belongs to us together. That something of the essence of attachment is that I know you and I am known by you. And that's that deepest need that we all have, is to look into the eyes of first a caregiver and then others who are important in our lives. And those eyes say to us, you are precious, you're safe, you're valuable, you're loved.
Is that a beautiful child? Look at his face. Is that a great kid? Yeah. Oh, you like that girl?
I kissed myself.
Did you kiss yourself?
If you bring that openness to what is, to your relationship with your child, research shows that your child, adoptive, foster, or by birth, will do better. So this is a win-win situation.
Look how precious is that girl. This is a beautiful child.
Me.
It's Chloe.
All children need to know that they're precious and that they're unique and that they're special.
I was very proud of you.
Ooh, nice work.
But a child who's come from a hard place
Your feet never touch the ground, buddy, from here to there.
needs to know it more desperately.
So proud of you.